Good day to you, ladies and gents, and welcome to CineDuel, a series where we take two films with similar elements, pit them up against each other, and see which one comes out on top. And today we have two films from the year 2012 in the form of The Raid and Dredd. So what will happen is I'll present both films individually, talk about their similarities, and then determine which one is the best towards the end. So without further ado, let's start with The Raid. So The Raid, also known as The Raid Redemption, takes place in Indonesia, where an elite police squad are tasked with raiding an apartment block in the slums of Jakarta and taking down the crime lord Tama and his lieutenants. However, once the police get inside, the odds are turned against them as they are trapped inside, and Tama announces to everyone in the building that he will give free residence to anyone who kills the police. And so the police now have to navigate their way through the building with limited ammunition and against a large amount of enemies who are in their path. What I like about the plot for this film is that it's simple yet effective, and while the plot elements will feel familiar to anyone who's seen, a crime or action thriller, it definitely has the sort of elements that are familiar yet effective, and there are some nice interesting sort of aspects of police corruption that are implemented into the film with just enough flavor that it makes it work. But where this film really kicks off is in the action department. This film happens to feature some of the finest action in any film in recent years in terms of its commitment to the hand-to-hand combat and the way in which everything is shot and edited. Everything comes at you very fast, quickly, and is edited together in such a way, along with the music, that keeps the kinetic energy of the film going. There is a flurry of punches and kicks that come hard and fast, and the way in which it is all put together is just perfect. And one of the things I also like about the film is the way in which it incorporates weapons and the environment into the film. And while there is certainly a fair amount of gun use in the film, where the film really shines is in the hand-to-hand combat sequences, and it is also quite violent. If you are the squeamish type, this might not be for you, but for those who don't mind a little bit of violence, the way in which the fights are handled with a lot of blood, stabbing, shooting, and all sorts of other very painful looking deaths is implemented in such a fantastic, creative, and cringe-worthy manner that just elevates the film to another level. You haven't seen action and violence fused together in this kind of way in such a satisfying action-oriented movie, but it's handled very well, shot very nicely, and as previously mentioned, the music for the film, the soundtrack, is also very good and has some really effective material during some of the quieter moments in the film. When it comes to the characters in this film, they're all pretty decent. Not many of them, if any of them, really have that much depth to them. However, the ones that are on screen long enough for you to feel some form of attachment to them do serve their jobs pretty well. Firstly, there's Iko Uwais as Rama. He's essentially the main protagonist of the film, and you have pretty much just enough backstory with him to feel some form of attachment to him and want to see him succeed in the film. He was really good, he had great screen presence, and you understood his character's motivations, and he just was wonderful. I think I remember hearing about this film a little later in the year, possibly closer to September of 2012, and just hearing small yet notable reverberations across the internet about all the people that had seen this film saying it was one of the best martial arts films that they'd ever seen, best one in years, possibly best ever. This is literally possibly the potential renaissance of the martial arts genre, and towards the end of that year there was a lot of people saying it was one of their favorite films of the year, and for good reason. This film garnered a lot of support and critical acclaim from those who saw it, especially those who enjoyed their action films. And obviously, because of the success of the film and the word of mouth, it allowed the film to get a sequel in 2014, which was even more well received than the last. So yeah, this film definitely has a following. It's small yet notable. So now let's talk about Dredd. Dredd takes place in the US in a post-apocalyptic future where the Earth is a wasteland, and within that wasteland is Megacity 1, a metropolis that houses 800 million people, full of violence and crime on a daily basis. And so, to counter that crime, there are the judges, the law enforcement, who are judge, jury, and executioner. And so the plot involves Judge Dredd and his new partner Anderson responding to a murder of individuals that take place in a tower block called Peach Trees. As they investigate and make headway, the main villain, a drug lord by the name of Mama, takes over the security of the building and traps the judges inside and orders her people to have them killed. And so, Dredd and Anderson have to carefully and quickly resolve this situation against overwhelming odds. I like the film because of its setting and the tone. It's dark, gritty and uncomfortable. And though the film primarily takes place in one location, you get to see what happens on a day-to-day basis and get to understand how this place came to be, that you want to learn more. I also really like the cast in this film as well. Firstly, let's talk about Judge Dredd himself. What I liked about Dredd is he's straightforward, cold, calculated and merciless, but he also believes in the law and reinforces it to the highest degree, and when he dishes out the damage, he does so swiftly without room for error. Dredd is really cool and hardcore, and it's thanks to Carl Urban's performance that really sells this role. Olivia Thirlby is also really good as Anderson, as the rookie stepping out into the field for the first time, using her abilities and dealing with the moral and ethical decisions that come with this job. And it's also interesting to see the dynamic between her and Dredd grow over the course of the film. And Lena Headey as Mama is just really great. Anyone who's seen her in Game of Thrones knows that she can do a villain-based role pretty well, and she handles this role so well. She's intimidating, unsettling, and will do whatever it takes to get her way. And I also like how she's proactive and gets right into the thick of the action when necessary. And obviously one of the main highlights of the film is the action. It's shot very well, nicely choreographed, it's very violent and intense, and of course there's these slow-mo sequences. When any of the people in the film take the drug known as slow-mo, it creates these really vivid and colourful and detailed sequences that are nice to look at, but also show some creative and unique approaches to the way in which the action is done and the violence is depicted. It's definitely one of the highlights of the film, and I remember watching it in 3D, and that was one of the best uses of 3D that I recall seeing in the cinema. I recall the marketing for this film was pretty awful, and it didn't inspire much hope for it, but when I ended up seeing it, it was definitely a lot better than I and a lot of other people expected. And because of the positive word of mouth about the film and the constant outcry from its fans to get a sequel done, it's gone on to become a cult classic. So yeah, it's definitely a lot better than the one from the 90s, I can tell you that. And I am one of the people that are hoping that a sequel does get made in the form of film or television at some point. And now it's time to talk about those similarities. If you've seen both films, then you will know that they are quite similar when it comes to the story, setting and progression. I saw Dredd first, and then I saw The Raid about 2 years later, and when I did some research and discovered how similar both films were, I was actually quite surprised. Now sure, both films have enough differences when it comes to the setting, style of action and character choices for doing what they do, but it also cannot be ignored how similar these films are once the characters get inside the big building and things get going. Both films feature protagonists going into a large apartment complex which they get trapped in. Also, both films feature good guys attempting to take down a bad guy that deals in crime and drugs. It also features the bad guy announcing over a PA system that they want the good guys dead. The protagonists also ascend through the building in a similar manner, with the journey getting harder along the way, and both films also feature a lot of action which is brutal, violent and well choreographed. Alright, so now it comes to the ultimate question, which film do I believe is better? Well, I believe that is honestly down to your own preference. I know that seems like a cop-out answer, but hear me out. If you are interested in martial arts action material, then The Raid is definitely for you. However, if you are interested in more of a action sci-fi kind of film, then Dredd is for you. It really is about personal preference. For me, personally, I've been a martial arts fan since the dawn of my existence, so that kind of stuff will always be my jam. I think I just prefer the more intense, action-heavy material that comes with The Raid. Plus, it has just some of the finest martial arts choreography since Ip Man. However, I feel like in terms of my overall choice, I feel like I'd have to pick Dredd, purely because there is a lot more going on with the story, the setting and the characters. It's a little bit more thought-provoking, and it leaves the door open for a sequel that I'm desperate to see. It gives you just enough of a look into this world that you want to see more. So yeah, I would say Dredd out of the two will probably be my pick. But what do you think? Please be sure to drop me a comment about it in the section below. And this will be the end of the first episode of CineDuel. Hopefully you enjoyed, and look forward to the next one when it comes. So until next time, see you later.